When I look at the emotions of Special Agent Canino and others, I mean, some kind of way we've got to make sure that we get back on track. I just think it's so important because the job that you do is, what, is only 1,800 of you all? It's not many.
That's correct, sir.
It's a small agency. And we can't afford to have division in this kind of agency. Would you agree, Special Agent McMahon?
I totally agree, sir. That's the highest priority for us right now, is to get our people back on track. Not a lot of us can have or show the passion that Carlos has, but I guarantee you we all have that. We might keep it inside a little bit more than Carlos does, but this is a passionate thing for all of us. We talk about the Second Amendment, and I believe that we, ATF, are the defenders of the Second Amendment, and we have to follow that very fine line of what's part of the legal commerce and what's part of the illegal commerce, and that's part of the challenge, a challenge that we fully accept, and that's something that we were drilled into us from early on when we were in the Academy. It's something we fully accept, and it's something that we do every day. And as I said in my statement, I am very proud of the people that are out there now and have been out there in the past and the work that they're doing.
I'm going to go back to July 12, 2011, letter to the Attorney General. Chairman Issa and Senator Grassley wrote these words. They said there has been public speculation that gun control politics may have been a motivating factor behind approving the risky strategy used in Operation Fast and Furious. In other words, by allowing straw purchasers to continue to operate and by encouraging gun dealers to go through with what were obviously suspicious sales, the ATF helped to create a big case in order to justify additional regulatory authority. The letter notes that the committee has seen no evidence to support this speculation, but goes on to ask the Department of Justice to respond anyway. Mr. Newell, you were the special agent in charge who oversaw this operation, and agents you worked and who worked it for the last year. What is your reaction to this speculation? When you were engaged in Operation Fast and Furious, I ask you for the record, were you deliberately attempting, or do you know others that were deliberately attempting to send guns to Mexico to justify additional firearms regulations?
In response to your question, sir, I don't recall saying that that's—
And I didn't say you did. I'm just saying, do you believe that?
No, I don't believe
based upon everything you know?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mr. McMahon?
Absolutely not, sir.
And did you see any evidence that your line agents acted out of anything but a sincere desire to combat a major trafficking network in this case, Mr. McMahon?
Not at all, sir.
Not at all. So that was their goal, and that was they're very dedicated agents out in the field that are doing that every day, in this case and many other cases.
While it's fair to question the judgment used in the case, and I certainly question it, and again, we are trying to get to the bottom of all of this, suggesting a conspiracy to harm others goes beyond the pale, and I think that, I just want to make sure that the American people are clear that we have an ATF which is operating and doing what it's supposed to do. Obviously, some mistakes have been made, very unfortunate mistakes. And I think the one thing we have to do is we have to learn from those mistakes and not let them happen again, because they can have very, very, very tragic consequences. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. And I'll try to be brief in a couple of last questions. First of all, I'm asked to include some additional documents that were shared and partially redacted with Justice so that we can keep them in the record and potentially ask you questions afterwards. Would all of you be willing to answer additional questions based on what's in the record afterwards if we have follow-ups?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newell, on January 8, 2010, you produced a memo that in line 13 said, currently our strategy is to allow the transfer of firearms to continue to take place, albeit at a much slower pace. in order to further the investigation and allow the identification of additional co-conspirators who would continue to operate illegally trafficking firearms to Mexico DTOs. Now, if I read that correctly, in addition to later where it says DEA has specifically requested that the ASAC and SAC level, that the ATF continue the investigation, if I read this memo of yours correctly, at least by January 10th or January 8th, 2010, you knew that these weapons were going to, specifically weapons that you were allowing to be sold, were going to the drug cartels in Mexico, and that you lobbied for in this memo the continuation partially because of DEA's request. Is there anything in plain English that I don't understand here?
Yes, sir. As I stated earlier in the testimony, I think that sentence about who would, that part of the sentence who would continue is based on the fact that we believe that if we didn't take the necessary steps to disrupt the whole organization, this group would continue to traffic in large quantities of firearms to Mexico.
Agent, we're not disagreeing that these are determined, incredibly rich, billions of dollars of drug money groups that have the power to corrupt the Mexican government, at times corrupt U.S. officials, to buy anything they want anywhere in the world in vast quantities. We're not, certainly I don't think anyone on the dais fails to understand that we have a narco state almost being formed in Mexico the way we had in Colombia, and that they and we are fighting to push back on a terrible tragedy that has occurred in Mexico. But the question here is, as of January 8th, I find this document to be irrefutable evidence that you knew that weapons you continue to sell, quote, albeit at a slower pace, although actually the evidence is it didn't slow down right away, but eventually it did, were in fact going to Mexico. You knew it. You knew that when you sold to particularly some of the specific individuals whose weapons had already been found, you knew they were going, that the straw buyer was buying it, you knew who they were transporting it to, who was paying for it, and where it was ending up. Isn't that true as of January 8th, 2010?
Well, we didn't sell the firearms, sir.
You knew, well, you came pretty close. You told the firearm dealer to go ahead and sell it. You knew who the buyer was. You knew there was a repeat buyer. You knew who the intermediary was that was the supplier of money, and you knew where they were ending up. Isn't that all true?
We believe that, obviously, we were working a firearms trafficking organization that was—
No, wait a second. Look, we're not talking about what you had to prove to a jury of 12. I'll go over these agents, and they're going to make you look like a fool here if you don't answer this honestly. You knew that A was going to B and B was going to the cartels. You knew that outright, so did the DEA as of January 8th, and that's what this briefing says, doesn't it? Answer me honestly, just once, clearly and simply.
Sir, with all due respect, when it comes to the DEA portion of that, it was the fact that DEA had an ongoing investigation from which we gathered the information which led to the initiation of our case. So that sentence there discusses the fact that DEA said, hey, whatever you do, don't do anything to compromise our case, which we respected. In response to your other question is, absolutely, the group that we were working, we knew that that was their intention, to funnel guns to Mexico.
Wait a second. Intention, not intention. It was a pattern of success that had occurred for a year. Isn't that true? You had watched straw buyers, repeated straw buyers, make purchases, deliver them, and those weapons had shown consistently in the hands of specific cartels, and, as you know, you knew who was paying for them. Isn't that all true?
Well, you said a year, sir. When that memo was written in January, we were probably, I'd say, 2 months into the investigation at that point.
When did Fast and Furious begin? 3 months earlier, I apologize. Previous year.
3 months.
Okay. So 3 months into this program, about 1,000 weapons or less in, you knew that the weapons you were telling gun dealers to go ahead and sell to the same straw buyers again and again. You already had 20. The number 20 is here. So I'm kind of going, well, you've indicted 20, 19 of whom were the straw buyers. So you knew the straw buyers, and the repeats kept coming after you knew starting point, bag man or money man, an endpoint. Isn't that true?
Sir, what we believed and what we suspected is far short of what we could prove. We were building a case.
Okay. Finally, you've given me the answer I wanted. You knew everything you needed to know to understand everything that led to the charges. What you didn't have was enough to make a case. So you went on month after month for 1,500 more weapons while you were trying to make a case. Isn't that correct?
Sir, in January, we didn't know all the 20 at that point. The 20 that we indicted, we had a large group of straw purchasers, and we were continuing to build a case throughout. But we still, in full conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we still needed the evidence to be able to prove that these individuals were in fact involved.
Who at the U.S. Attorney's Office wanted this investigation to go on past January 8, 2010?
When did they?
Who? Did Lanny Brewer, was he briefed by January 8, 2010?
I don't know if he was, sir.
Well, his office approved the wiretaps under his authority. You said you didn't read the wiretaps. I guess neither one of you read the requirements. But somebody had to be briefed who signed it on his behalf, on his authority. Did either of you ever brief Lanny Brewer or anyone else that could sign on his behalf?
I do not know, sir.
I do not know.
Okay. So I guess we're just going to figure that you knew on January 8th that you had the same people buying weapons repeatedly, leading to the same cartel, and you didn't quit because you hadn't made your case. So we continued selling until we had a dead Federal agent and a scandal. That's pretty much what I've heard here today. Any of the agents that work in the field, any of you see something different than this thing kept going after everything was known, except maybe if we keep doing long enough, we'll get better cases for the U.S. Attorney. And then it began falling apart after Brian Terry was murdered. Does anyone in the first four see anything different? Correct me if I've missed something.
Chairman, I'm still sitting here listening to the conversation, and it's still unbelievable to me. And quite honest with you, I still don't know what to believe why this investigation was initiated and why it continued for so long. I can't. I know you look speechless. I'm speechless. I just don't know.
Well, words escape me to try to do any better than you don't know why, and I don't know why either. The gentlelady from New York, additional round.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the line of question of Congressman Farenthold when he was talking about the lack of communication, which after 9/11 we had many commissions, we had many studies, and what came out of these commissions was that our intelligence wasn't working, and we weren't communicating, and we then overhauled our government, the most major overhaul of our intelligence since 1948. And it seems to be a little bit of the same thing of what I'm hearing about these hearings, because people are saying they didn't know anything, and people are saying they told people, and it's not getting through. So the communication is not taking place. When you mention 9/11, the mayor of New York, and we are about to come upon the 10th anniversary of that tragic day, has been airing TV ads in New York where they use the words of an al-Qaeda leader who is talking to his followers and saying, go to America. It's so easy to get a gun. Go to America, get all the guns you need in our fight for the al-Qaeda. So this is an ad about how illegal people who want to hurt Americans are being instructed literally to come to America and get guns in order to combat democracies. And so I think this hearing is very, very serious about the flow of illegal guns. Earlier, we had a hearing, and we had several agents who seemed very brave, very frustrated, and very courageous. And they testified that they were concerned about the sale of the guns to straw agents. They were concerned about not having arrests, about being ordered not to make arrests and not to conduct surveillance. And I understand that you were asked, Mr. Newell and Mr. McMahon, and you did not hear any of their frustrations. They testified that they reported this to their supervisors and nothing happened, and that's why they were so frustrated. So I think